Let's speak with Steven Woolfe, Director for the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, also a lawyer too, and knows his way around these kind of stories. Steven, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
I mean, let's just start with the first one. I mean, I said it there in the intro. I think, you know, if your philosopher's favoured alien was listening to this conversation, they'd think, hang on a sec, what? So sex offenders were previously allowed to stay, but now they're not going to be. But that's how we've been rolling for the last few years.
It has indeed, and it's really part of the whole shocking legal and immigration system that we've created as a consequence of our membership of the European Courts of Human Rights and allowing Article 8 in particular to be extended so much that as a consequence of legal cases and being embedded in common law, almost anything has been permitted. And so now we have all these different levels of silly kind of legal issues that have occurred, that people are just asking the simple question, how did this happen? And the reality is it happened because we joined the European Courts of Human Rights, lawyers extended the kind of principles, judges enforced that, and it became embedded in our common law. And if you want it to go away, all those aspects need to go away too.
So the situation as it is today, you could come over from another country, you might have served 10 years in jail as a convicted paedophile in another country, but you've come to the UK, and then you could, while you're here, you could claim you want to remain here. You might have come with a legitimate job, regardless of the case. The fact that you had a 10-year prison sentence under your belt for a grim offence like that would not have automatically got you banned. In fact, it wouldn't have got you banned at all, I think I'm right in saying, because you wouldn't have served time in prison in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. It wouldn't give you an automatic ban, because what the current law would say is that we need to, or rather the Home Office would need to present its case. We would then review Article 4 of your human rights, your rights to a family life, your rights to fair trial, within the basis of the European Courts of Human Rights. And as a view of that, you could then argue, look, if I go back to my country, yes, I was a rapist here, but if I was returned to Pakistan, then my human rights would be destroyed because I'd be hunted, I'd be pursued, I'd be ignored. And of course, then the courts accept that here, because not the individual, but because the precedent has already been set many, many times. And the way to deal with it, Ian, now is, and I know and I appreciate that the Labour Party have come out today, said they're going to review the European Court of Human Rights in respect of issues like this and in cases like this, and I welcome that. But once again, this is tinkering at the edges. And of course, once you tinker, then all it will do is open up another gap for lawyers to be able to use it. And if you've got judges that are favourable to it, then they'll accept it too.
100%. And of course, the case of the example I gave, let's say it's an Iranian paedophile that did serve 10 years in an Iranian jail, came over here, got himself some sort of residency. Then someone says you're going to be deported, and of course his argument would be, well, I can't be deported because what I did means that if I go back to Iran now, I'm high profile because of this case, and therefore I'll be, beaten to death in the streets, or the government will imprison me again. So, and that's because of being a member of the European Court of Human Rights, that he would be able to utilise those articles in order to remain. I mean, it's so bonkers. You'd think a 10-year-old would be able to work this out, but that's the system we've been living under. I mean, it's utterly mad.
It is utter madness, and it's incredulous to those of us who became lawyers, looking at the common law and the rule of law as being something that we are avowedly a believer in. I certainly am. I believe in my legal system. I believe that generally we're not out there as lawyers either for the prosecution or defence, for acting for any particular individual, deliberately to overrule the politicians' viewpoints. And I think most judges do it correctly. But you are tied between the common law as it's implemented. You are literally tied into it. And so the only way now is for Parliament to make a strong decision and say, look, we feel that our membership of the European Court of Human Rights is no longer working. We have a choice, leave it or try and amend it. I doubt this latter will work. And if you do, how do we then amend our own legislation, which is the Human Rights Act and our own common law, to ensure that this does not happen? And I've set out very clearly before that it's leaving the European Court of Human Rights, the Human Rights Act, various other pieces of legislation, including immigration rules and policy procedures. And if you get that, then you can start dealing with the common law system. And that way, that paedophile, from whatever country it is, would no longer be able to rely on any of our legal systems to protect him. We should be looking after the interests of those people they hurt and damaged and were criminally liable for, rather than their own human rights.
Indeed. And what's interesting, just a final point on this specific story, Stephen, is that, you know, it's amazing we're only talking about sex offenders here. I mean, I would extend this into all sorts of areas of criminality, but obviously the one that gets the headlines, the one that Yvette Cooper has announced, was sex offenders, as if she's some kind of hero to solution to this problem when she's endorsed and ticked every box that's allowed this system to happen over her career. And yet here we are, just really hypothecating one case when there's many I think we could make the same argument over.
Yes, there are many different types of criminal actions that you would argue, and I would certainly say that due to the way that drugs has such an impact on our society and families, and when you look at families who've lost their children to the evil aspects of drug taking and what it can do, then those people involved in that level should also be considered. And many more of the people will have different views on this. But the reality is we should be looking at a general legal principle that says if you have committed a serious crime, we can define what a serious crime is, you can no longer rely on the protections that are given to you under the European Court of Human Rights, Article 4, and that we should be able to deport you if we believe that that is in the interests of public safety.
100%. Just a word while we're with you, Stephen. Boat crossing surpassing 10,000. We predicted this on Friday. We knew it was going to be a fairly decent weekend weather-wise. God knows what's going to happen this week, by the way. It's like Bermuda out there at the moment. So I'm imagining many more people will be on the way. But it is the earliest point in any year that this milestone has ever been reached. So, yes, it's a rounded number, as if 9,000 was OK. But it's nonetheless a rather grim direction of travel and a big headache, one would assume, for this government.
Absolutely. They are certainly not stopping the boats using Rishi Sunak or stopping the gangs using Keir Starmer's phrases. And we are on a position where we're looking like we're above 40 to 42% higher than last year. That would indicate a good level of 50 to 60,000 coming across. And the impact of that large number of people are being affected all across the country. We see the company Serco, as we've watched in the press recently, going up and down the northwest of England, through the Midlands, to the poorest areas of our country, asking for landlords to give up their houses for 5 years and ensure that you can put asylum seekers into them, and they would not have to pay any costs. Only the taxpayer would via Serco. And I have now deemed Serco to be a leech leviathan on the kind of nature of British people, because they are effectively behind the scenes removing taxpayers' money to ensure poverty in those areas. Because what will happen? As soon as the housing stock has declined because it's filled with asylum seekers, people who are on the poorer levels of income, who are renting accommodation, will have nowhere to go, and anything that's left, that will face sky-high rises in rent. 100%. This is obscene.
Yeah, and again, back to what I said at the beginning, you'd think a 10-year-old could work this one out. It's not hard to work out the problem, but for some reason it seems to have jumped several hurdles in government and in cabinet meetings, unfettered somehow. And this one of those stories that you kind of read and go, I'll have to read that again. I must have got something wrong. Vera Hobhouse, the Lib Dem MP, who's backing a campaign to give the vote to over 4 million non-citizens living in Britain. I don't know where to start on this, Stephen. Given the kind of climate we are in, what do you think Ms Hobhouse is thinking on this? Or maybe she just assumes that 4 million will all be Lib Dem voters?
Well, I think first and foremost, this is about rigging a potential vote back into the European Union, because the vast majority of those people that they're looking at will be EU citizens who've been granted the opportunity to live here. That's certainly the numbers that we've seen, because they were almost double the amount that the government said were EU citizens who could stay and remain in the UK after we left the European Union under Brexit. And secondly, I think that there is always a view that within the circles of the left, and numerically they are quite right in so many ways, that those who come to the country from foreign nations, first of all, do vote more towards the left. They vote for socialist parties and they vote for Liberal Democrats. So that's the idea. It's to ensure there is a form of vote rigging in the future, to ensure a conservative or right-wing party cannot take any control across the country.
Yeah, I sense it is as simple as that. Listen, Steven, always a pleasure. Very thorough stuff. Thank you for your time, Steven Woolfe, Director for the Migration and Economic Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. I beg your pardon.